candidates, they really want to her team.
We're live. We're live. We're live.
Back to you.
All right, Unish, thank you so much.
We're live. We're live. And yes, we're in the United States. So it's a country. It's everywhere in the United. I could be in New York City right now.
Don't give out our location.
I won't.
That over the last few days he has been hunkered down.
New York City.
He's been doing extensive policy sessions and wants for him to do two things tonight. Two things that his campaign wants him to do. Number one, tie Vice President Harris to President Biden. Make her own what's going on with the economy, what's going on with immigration. And number two, remind voters some of the positions she took back in 2020 when she was running for president that was left of center. Try to paint her as simply too liberal for those moderate swing voters in places like the suburbs of Philadelphia. Of course, that is the plan. That is what the campaign wants. But it's all going to be about the execution in the moment, especially if Harris tries to bait the former president into an outburst. Savannah.
All right, Dasha, thank you.
Let's bring back Kristen Welker and Hallie Jackson. I want to talk about how the vice president has cast herself in this campaign as the prosecutor, going against Donald Trump. Are there limits to that in this
chat is not available right now. I can't believe it.
Absolutely. When I've spoken to
I cannot. My chat can't.
Is getting specific, but not too specific. She's got to tell the story.
My chat doesn't have to give their opinion. I can't believe it.
We keep using change. How would she change things right now?
Oh well. At least you're getting. I guess you're watching this video.
And really lay out in more detail what she wants to see. Yes, she's going to prosecute the case against Donald Trump on a range of different issues. She'll accuse him of switching his opinion, particularly when it comes to the issue of abortion and reproductive rights. But again, she's
1 minute.
But she also has to answer for some changes in her own positions. Of course, she ran for president in 2020. She came across
1 minute.
Positioned herself as a much more progressive type of candidate. Now she's really moving to the middle here in a general election. Crowded primary. Right back in 2019, 2020, she has moved away from that on issues like, for example, mandated gun violence
50
rifles, something that
seconds.
she no longer supports. Fracking, for example, something that she has changed.
I don't know why. I don't know why.
Backed away from. Watch for the former president to try to go after some of these issues. And I'll tell you, to bring it back to the voters, that panel with Kate Snow is super interesting. The economy came up again and again. And even though this summer, for the first time, inflation dipped. It's gonna be
funny. It's gonna be funny.
About it right now. So how does Vice President Harris address that moving forward?
Let me briefly go there and talk.
It's live. You cannot chat, so
many that the former president has tended to be more rambling, disjointed, and many of his answers at a time that we were focusing on Joe Biden. Is that?
I know this is a boring stream. I'm watching a more entertainment stream.
We will be back with you at the top of the hour now, 9 o'clock on the East Coast here in New York and in Philadelphia, the room where it's about to happen. We're just seconds away now from tonight's first and perhaps last presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump.
As we've noted, this will be the first time these candidates have met in person, and it's happening on a debate stage. Also, the first debate since President Biden left the race over the summer.
Yeah, because Joe Biden's a joke.
Nominee. A lot has happened in a very
Joe Biden's a joke.
Yes, it has, and we have a few moments until the debate starts. We will join it. ABC News is broadcasting it, but we.
I'm just here I'm just watching this because I'm just watching to see what have.
The candidates' microphones will be muted while the other one is talking. Each candidate will get 2 minutes for answers. There will be closing statements, but no opening statements.
I'm live streaming.
To probably mix it up rather early in this as they stake out their positions and we get a sense of where all this is going.
9 p.m. 9 p.m.
Let's take you to Philadelphia now, and the first presidential debate of 2024.
Okay.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
I want to see how they do well internationally. I know, I'm 14, I know, and this is supposed to be 18 plus.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago. Your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year, because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history.
All right.
We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums. And they're coming in and they're taking
he
jobs that are
is alive
occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado.
Ohio.
They're taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality. And we
But
have
some
to
of them
get
are
out.
good.
We have to get them out fast.
Not
Created one of the greatest
I don't support the
economic
criminals,
models
but
in our
but
country.
some of them are
Nobody
good. Some
can
immigrants
even
are
better.
good.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump, will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad. But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy.
What about the
And
Social
the
Security?
best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future.
What about the
of
poor
America.
people?
What Goldman
Yeah.
Sachs has said?
The below
is that
the
Donald
the
Trump's
below
plan will
the
make the economy
the
worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand.
Been
on the
11
issues.
minutes
And I'd
already,
invite you
brother.
to know
yeah.
that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say.
They stopped the
I
war.
went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. Just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan.
It is a long ass
tariffs
news.
up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say
But
that
my-
tariffs at that
but my
level
viewers
cost
need to
passed
know.
on to the consumer.
My
Vice
opinion.
President
Wait,
Harris
I
has
shall
argued
give you
there'll be
some too.
higher prices
I'm
on
posting
gas,
this on I shall
food,
give you some
clothing,
too.
medication. Arguing
Yeah, you're
costs
right. He'll give me some
of
too. These are
$4,000
no.
a year.
The
Do
real.
you
You
believe
can say
there
something
is
on this live
more
stream too.
higher
You can
prices
you can
because
react
of
to it
tariffs?
too.
If
If they want to watch this whole debate, if they want to watch this whole debate, then yeah. But this is for our reaction.
China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were
We
other
want Trump
countries.
back.
And you know, if she doesn't like him,
Wait.
they should have gone out and they should have
Can I
immediately cut the
stream on
tariffs.
Russia
But those
News
tariffs
Yeah.
they had 3.5 years now under
He's
their
gonna stream-
administration.
If you want to see
We
Gordon
have
Muskie
taken
full stream,
billions of dollars,
I think it was
hundreds
in-
of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation.
Mm.
They had the
Mm.
highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a
videos called I
trade
Shall Give You
deficit,
Some
one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military.
that is crazy.
Basically sold
That
us
is
out. When a
crazy.
policy
That is
about China
crazy.
should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century,
Yo.
which means focusing on the details of what that requires.
But can we just
Focusing
give
on
them a
relationships with
little,
our
just
allies,
a
focusing
just a
on
little,
investing in American-based
tiny
technology
win, just
so that we
one
win
little
the
tiny
race on
win,
AI, on quantum computing.
just one little
Focusing
tiny.
on what
You don't
we
have to
need
agree
do
with me,
to
but
support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers'
clean up.
rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point. When we know that she was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything.
What about
that
the
she
COVID
believed
stuff?
3
The
years
COVID's
ago,
already
4 years
passed,
ago
but it
is
still
out the window.
existed. But
She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her.
they're
a
saying back
hat.
in 2020.
She's gone to my
yeah,
philosophy, but
the
if
2020
she ever got
sucked.
elected, she'd change it.
Yeah,
And it will
It-
be
it
the
is.
end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well.
are
But
you?
when you look
are
at
you
what
sure?
she's done to our country, and when you look at these
So you're
millions
saying-
and millions of
but you
people
say-
that are pouring
So
into
you're
our
saying
country monthly,
she's a
where it's,
communist?
I believe 21 million
Marxist,
people, not the 15
communist.
that people say.
She's
And I think
not
it's a lot
communist.
higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're
No,
criminals.
I'm
Many of these
telling you
people
this.
coming in are criminals.
You're calling
That's
her a
bad for our
communist
economy,
because
too. You know, you
she
mentioned before,
she's
we'll talk
trying to
about
help the
immigration
middle.
later. Well, bad
I know.
immigration is the worst
What
thing
about
that
the
can
poor
happen to
people?
our economy.
What about the
They
people on
have-
Social Security?
She has destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the
You don't
issue
have to
of
hate the
abortion.
country,
President Trump
and you
welcomed
don't have to
California
love the
to
country.
kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be
No, I
the
don't
most
kill the
pro-life
country.
president in
You don't
American
need.
history.
You do.
Then
No,
last
I
month,
know
you said the
Biden
Biden
being the
administration
bad person
great for
right now.
women and their reproductive rights.
Not-
not that-
not
too
bad. Biden has
with regard to
a
your
lower
so-called
IQ.
abortion ban,
Yeah,
you
lower
originally
IQ.
said that it was
Lower,
too short.
lower,
You said, quote,
lower
"I'm gonna be
than the
voting
dumb.
that we
No,
need
lower
more
the.
than 6 weeks."
He's
But
the
then, very
lower
next
than
day,
zero.
you
Yeah.
of course,
No, no.
said you would vote to
He-
support
Joe
scenes
Biden
right
is
now.
the dumbest
Vice
president.
Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust
So
you?
the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why
Wait, what?
Because that predominates, because they're radical. The
What?
Democrats
That's
are
called
radical in that.
abortion,
And
brother.
her vice presidential pick,
Execute
which I think was a
nah.
horrible pick, by the way, for our country.
If people
because
want to
he's
execute
really
their
adamant.
babies
But her vice
and not
presidential
have
pick
any
says
babies,
abortion in the
that is not okay.
is absolutely fine. He also says
And that's their right.
execution after
That's-
birth.
wait,
This
is that-
execution, no
that's your
longer
right to
abortion,
say
because
it's
the
not
baby
okay.
is born is
That
okay.
is not okay.
And that's not
I'm
okay
just-
with me.
I'm just
It's the
neutral
vote.
on this
But what I did
situation.
is something
I'm
for
not saying you
52
have
years
to
they've been trying
or
get
not.
Roe v. Wade
Well, it's just
into
my
the
honest
states.
opinion.
Yeah,
Don't do it.
The genius and heart and
I'm not
strength
judging anyone,
of
but
6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country
someone's
apart
pointing out
for
one person
52
watching you.
years. Every legal
Yeah, one
scholar,
person is watching me.
every Democrat,
Someone I
every
like, too.
Republican, liberal,
Yeah.
conservative, they
Oh.
all wanted
Somebody
this
watching
issue
me
to be
right
brought
now?
back to the states where the people could vote.
0
And
people
that's what
watching me.
happened.
It's okay. I'm
Now, Ohio,
uploading it as I
The
like
vote
it.
was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual
honest,
state
Donald
is
Trump,
voting. It's the vote.
we
of the
all
people
want you
now. It's
back.
not tied up in the federal government. I
Not
did a
all.
great service in doing
Not
it.
all
It
of
took
us,
courage
but
to do it. And the Supreme
me
Court had great courage in
and
doing it.
Board
And
of
I give
the,
tremendous
I'm just
credit
neutral
to
on the
those 6
situation right now.
justices.
Right now, I'm
There is
neutral.
no state in this
I'm-
country that
I'm
doesn't
also
vote for
neutral.
a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
You don't have to
Well, as I
align
said,
with
you're
me.
gonna
You
hear a
know
bunch of
that, right?
lies,
If you want to
and
vote
that's
for
not
Donald Trump, you
actually a
can.
surprising fact.
you can bring my phone.
Let's understand how
Sure.
we got here. Donald Trump
My phone.
hand selected
Oh.
3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he
Yeah.
intended.
Look at
And
my
now
phone.
in over 20 states, there
Yeah,
are
it's starting to get
Trump
boring now.
abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people want?
I say betrayed, but if
Pregnant
there's
women
a lot of
want to
gay
carry
viewers,
a pregnancy
so
to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She
That's
didn't
crazy.
want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy
Not trying to be
term.
rude, but
They don't
oh,
want that.
ancest. Ancest is wrong.
And I
yeah,
pledge to
ancest
you,
is wrong.
Having sex with a brother or a sister is
to
wrong.
put back
Yeah,
in
that's
place
very
the
wrong.
protections of Roe v. Wade.
That is a
As
crime.
President
That
of the
is
United States, I
That's
will
a fucking
proudly
crime.
sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else And every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states. And the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. And they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a
Can't
total
read no text
catastrophe.
messages.
The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with JD. In all fairness, JD, and I don't mind if he has
JD, the president of the 2028.
We don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And
I'm
as
going to
you
say yes.
rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working one or two jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it. And
that's what my mom got through.
Is unconscionable.
Got on a plane or in a car, move away from Connecticut
believe in a woman's right to make decisions about
to go to censored.
In every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Everybody knows a lot of
Vice President,
states.
Excuse me, I have to
So.
respond.
And yes,
I have been a
I
leader
what
on
I
IVF,
am a
which is
Connecticutian.
fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact,
I'm from Michigan.
when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the
I'm from
Alabama
Michigan.
courts, I saw the
You
people
can
of
say that.
Alabama and the
I thought you were from
legislature
Russia.
2 days later.
Oh, yeah, I'm from
voted
Russia.
in. I've been a leader on
I'm
it.
a Russian.
They know that, and everybody else knows it. I
You
have
speak
been a leader on
American
fertilization,
English?
IVF.
But Russian.
And the other thing, you should
I'm
ask.
a Russian American.
Will she
They're
allow
Russian
abortion
American.
in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask me
Why
that question?
don't you
That's
answer the
problem.
question? Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe
They're
v.
both
Wade,
fighting.
You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're gonna
Really?
turn now to immigration.
government
and
of
border security.
Virgi-
We know it's
the
been
government of
divisive.
Virginia
Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board.
are taking a baby?
Vice President
No.
Harris
The
No, that
state
doesn't make
shouldn't.
sense.
The state shouldn't kill a baby.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
it's up to the mother. It's
The
up.
mother owns the baby.
Well, it's up to the mother.
We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this
You
comes
both-
at a time where the
You
people
both
of our
need to
country
separate
actually
from the
need a
good
leader
immigrants
who
from the
engages
bad
in
immigrants.
solutions,
And the bad
actually
immigrants
addresses
should go back to their home
problems at
country.
hand.
The good ones
But what we have
that
is
want
a
to start
former
lives
president is
and
someone who
families
prefer to run on a
want
problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something.
wants to
he's
move
gonna
to the
talk
United
about
States,
immigration a
fine.
lot tonight, even when it's not
But the
subject
bad
that is
ones,
being
they can
raised.
go back to
And
their
I'm going
home
to actually do
country.
something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
Yeah,
And I will tell you, the one
rotate
thing you
your
will not hear him talk about
device.
is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
There's one viewer.
And I'll tell you, I
Who is
believe you deserve
Just one
a
viewer.
president who actually puts you
Master?
first. And I
Maybe.
pledge to
I
you that
really
I
don't
will.
know.
Vice
Well,
President
mine is
Harris,
like
thank you. President
Blaze
Trump,
or
on that
something.
point, I want to get your
Well, I would
response.
like to respond.
Let me just ask,
Blaze
why
or
did you
Random
try
Blaze.
and kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the board.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora,
Venezuelan
Springfield.
gangs
A lot of
everywhere.
towns don't want to talk about it
Gangs
because they're so embarrassed.
should go back to their home
In
country.
Springfield,
Good
they're
people,
eating the
I'd
dogs,
say the good
that
people
came in.
should stay in the
They're
United
eating the
States.
cats. They're eating.
The good people
They're
should
eating
stay in the United
the
States.
pets.
The bad
The
ones
bad
should
people
move.
are eating cat shit
And
right
this is
now.
what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as the rallies are concerned,
Nah,
as
bro,
far as- the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very
I'm so
simple
done.
phrase.
No,
Make
bro,
America
one
great
person
again.
left.
She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager
I
there.
can
He
see
told
it.
us
It's
there have
Ohio.
been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've seen
this,
people on
let
television.
me just say here, this is
The
the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the
say
city
their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
What happened to the pets? Okay,
You know,
it's bad.
This
You
is
shouldn't hurt
one of the
animals.
reasons why in this
Yeah,
election
not okay
I
on
actually
these
have
animals.
the endorsement
Exactly.
of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not
What
being
republic?
addressed,
What
I
republic?
think
What
the choice is
republic?
clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond.
Yeah. Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They
Yeah.
never fired anybody having to do with Afghanistan. And
It's
the
wrong
Taliban and
to
the
kill
13 people
animals
who
and
were just killed
all the
viciously
bad-
and
the all the
violently.
bad
I get
people
to
that
know
came
the
to this
parents and the
country,
family.
you need to
They
leave.
didn't fire- they
All the
should
good
fire
people
all
can
those
stay.
generals, all those
All the
top
bad
people,
people
because
that
that was
came
one
to
of the
this
most
country need to
incompetently
leave.
handled situations anybody
That's all.
has
Period.
ever seen.
Period.
So when somebody
Period.
does a bad job, I fire him.
Bordowski
You
2024.
take a guy like Casper, he was no good, I
Bordowski
fired him, so he
2024.
writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can write books, with nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation.
That's crazy,
They
Biden.
didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people.
We
That's a
need to
good
get
way not
inflation
have
down.
books written about
That's
you.
all.
But just to
Or maybe
finish,
just write
I
on
got
that
more
whiteboard
votes
there.
than any Republican in history
I don't know why
by
I
far.
have that whiteboard.
In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S.
With local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals.
And the criminals should
They
leave.
allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers to come into our country.
And they should
Now,
leave.
The United States
Agreed.
are told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever
Period.
come back or we're going to kill
Period.
you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably
And they shouldn't.
They think they're gonna
And
get
they
votes,
shouldn't,
but
because
it's not
we're
worth it,
not the world's
because
prison.
They're destroying the
We're the
fabric
world's
of our country
superpower.
by what they've done.
We're
There's
not the
never
world's
been
prison.
anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people.
We're
that
supposed to
is-
be the world of opportunity. And that's what the Mexicans and the Venezuelan families want. It's the world of opportunity. No.
Crime in this country is through the roof,
Gangs
and we have
from
a new
those
form of
countries,
crime. It's
their
called
home
migrant
countries,
crime,
the
and it's
the
happening at levels
Mexican
that
home
nobody
family
else.
countries, gangs from that, like tough guys from there that kill people.
They were defrauding statements.
Is
They
here.
didn't include the worst
Even
cities.
though
they didn't include
families
the cities
from
with the worst crime. It was
Argentina
a fraud.
and
Just like
Mexico
their number of
and
818,000
Venezuela
jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think
are
this is so
harming
rich
those
coming from
that trying to get
someone who's been
opportunities
prosecuted
from those countries over
for
to here.
national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this
Defunding?
race. It is important that we move
Defunding?
forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the
Defunding.
needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent, and I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that.
But you're
with the
defunding
decision
the
that came down
police.
just recently from the Supreme
That's
Court.
crazy.
You're giving less money to the police.
Never happened in this
You should
country.
give more money to the
Weaponized
police.
Justice Department.
Show
Every one
police
of
some
those
respect.
cases
Instead of like
was involved
intervening
with
in
the
foreign
DOJ,
conflicts, you should
Atlanta,
give your
and Fani
police
Willis,
most of the
to
money.
the, Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York, every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found.
You should also fund the UN.
Take an L from Joe Biden.
My documents case. They said, oh, that's the
El
toughest
Joe
of them all.
Biden. El
A
Joe
complete
Biden.
and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're
President Trump.
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, why
let's
won't
talk
Donald
about
Trump just
extreme
finish his
and
sentence?
understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the
Why
former
won't Donald
president
Trump
would
just finish his
essentially be
sentence?
immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he
No,
will
not
terminate,
Venice.
I'm quoting, terminate
Belarusian
the
dictator.
Constitution of the United States. That he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his
Immune
political enemies.
to
Someone who has openly
crimes.
expressed
Immune to crimes?
disdain
Oh,
for
I know
members of
someone
our
that
military.
does that.
Understand
It's called the
what it would
fucking
mean if Donald Trump went
Belarusian
back to the
dictator
White House.
Lukashenko.
Guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president,
We gotta
This is the
continue.
one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a
President
fake Russia investigation.
Russia,
that went
Russia,
nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You want a
Oh,
mandatory
Russia,
criminal
huh,
buyback program
Russia,
to
Russia,
restore
Russia,
confidence. Now
Russia,
your
Russia.
campaign says you don't.
Instead of like
So
helping
you're
Ukraine, you
criminalizing
should
border crossing.
you should
Now you're
help
taking a
stop the
hard line. I
war.
know you say that your values
And that's what
have
Donald
not
Trump is
changed.
doing.
So then why have so many of your
Is
policy
stopping a war.
positions changed?
So
But
my
why are you
values have
taking it
not
apart your
changed, and
phone?
I'm going to discuss every
It's been like
one of
that.
the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership,
That's sad.
not
That's
everybody
sad.
got handed
Bought your first home
$400
as a
million on
teenager?
a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times is a value that I bring to my work to say
That's
we are
wrong.
going to work
That's
with the
not-
private sector
not
and
wrong.
home
That's
builders
sad.
to increase 3
Very
million homes,
sad.
increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related
going
to
on the thing,
having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams.
Okay. If the
Values
inflation
have not changed. And
runs
what
up,
is important is that there is a president who
that's all
actually
you.
brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're
Whoa.
all laughing at it. She gave up
Give
at least
police
12,
more money.
probably 14 or 15
Give
different
police more
policies.
money.
Like, she was
They
big on
deserve it.
defund the police. In Minnesota,
I don't care.
she went
I don't care if I'm a
out-
fucking criminal, even though I'm not.
Please.
I don't care if
Does that sound
I'm a
familiar?
good guy or a criminal. I say
She
fund
went
the
out-
police.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
need
but-
money. They need money.
Minnesota.
No matter
wanted
what.
To let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis,
That's crazy.
she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President Trump.
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis.
Because
Mr.
we're
President,
gonna let
on
him
January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the
Wrong.
people that are pouring
Sad.
into our country and
Sad.
killing people
Sad.
that she allowed to
Sad.
pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David. all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
one
ask
of those, David, one of those people are going to be prosecuted. One of the people that burned down Minneapolis is going to be prosecuted. Or in Seattle, they went
They
into
should.
Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. One of those people are going to be prosecuted.
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember
Ooh.
that when it came
That's
to the
bad.
problem
That
of
is
the
bad.
militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go
he
back.
on the
We're
loose
not
right
going
now?
back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too
It
far
was-
for
it
you,
was
well,
a
there is
bunch
place
Of
in
patriotic
our campaign
people.
for you to stand
because
for
they don't
country,
want Joe Biden in
to
office.
stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was
1
what
hour
it was.
long, brother,
Also,
on your
on
thing.
Charlottesville. That story
Why,
has
is it
been, as you
50?
would say,
On the
debunked.
one, it's like
Laura
36
Ingraham,
minutes.
Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people.
Yep,
they
almost
covered
1
it.
hour more.
If they
Oh,
go
oh,
an
wow.
extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed. All he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President.
people are killing many people,
I-
unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in
No, I
2020?
don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically. You
But
know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No judge looked at it.
and said there
They
was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread-
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you do a special on it, I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is.
They put it into the new
Mr.
room.
President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that
You can
I have traveled the world as vice president of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up?
Joe Biden.
You need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country. He ended that, but he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay with it because
Your time
I
is up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal.
Can we just draw a
President
straight
Biden
line
has
through
not been able to break through the stalemate.
Jerusalem?
How would you do it?
It just
Well,
50-50
let's
it?
understand how we
Can we
got
just
here.
50-50
On
it?
October 7th,
Please.
Hamas, a terrorist organization,
Get them
slaughtered
out. Get them out.
1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because
You're
it is
right.
also true, far too many
Israel does have the right to
innocent
defend
Palestinians
itself.
have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be
Just 50-50
security for the
it.
Israeli people and
Just
Israel and an
50-50.
equal
Just
measure for the
draw a fucking
Palestinians.
straight
The one thing
line
I
through
will
the
assure you
whole
always,
damn thing.
I will always give
And
Israel
get
the ability
Hamas
to
out of
defend
Palestine.
itself, in
All right?
particular as it relates
Hamas
to
doesn't
as it relates
represent
to
the whole
Iran
of
and
Palestine.
any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how
True.
would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation. And now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. this would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported
She's-
Israel
she's-
and the Israeli people. He
She's
knows that
neutral.
He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well
It's
known
true.
that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia
He
went
said
into
he wants
Ukraine,
NATO
it
to
was
pay.
brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down.
That's not her. That's Joe Biden.
And I think he meant it because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back
They're
with much
trying-
more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
The ABC News presidential debate will
Is that
continue
all?
after this.
No. Commercial break. Okay. For you guys watching, President Trump wants the whole NATO to pay, and that's true. I want NATO to pay too.
Yeah, we all do. We all do.
And yes, you might hate me on this. You might hate me on this. Watching this, I would be good friends with North Korea too. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's just your honest opinion.
It is my honest opinion. It is my
I'm not
honest.
judging your opinions either. Okay, brother?
And you have the right to say I hate you. Oh wait, my chat is. But I guarantee that you're saying I hate you. You can have the right. Sorry, my chat is censored. I tried to enable the chat in the
Why
beginning
won't
of
you
the
just
stream.
give out your... Oh, yeah, that's right. You cannot give out phone numbers. God damn it.
All right, you're saying I hate you right now. I know you hate me right now. You want me canceled? Cancel me.
You have a backup account.
I don't have a backup account. All right. And besides, they said they want to stop the war. Yeah, Kamala Harris wants to stop the war. Hold on, let me check my phone so I can do this live thing. I think this is my most popular stream. 5 people online. 5 people online. Sorry, the comments are turned off. Sorry, the comments turned off. Somebody turned off my comments. I don't know why. My live chat.
YouTube politics, probably YouTube people.
Yeah, the YouTube people. Unban my comments then.
Remember it says restricted mode is activated? That's probably YouTube.
Yeah. Sorry, your chat is currently unavailable.
Yeah, and that happens to me too.
You're just looking at my face. Sorry. You're just watching my opinion. Yeah, that's why I'm on here live. Alright. Hold on. To all you guys watching, my plan for peace in the Israel-Hamas war is just to draw a line between those two countries. The northern half, Israel, and the southern half go to Palestine, not Hamas. Not Hamas. Hamas.
Live from Paris, live in Tel Aviv. We are here in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Every weeknight, it's your news playlist.
Oh, and they're gone.
Streaming weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now. We're back with tonight's debate between
we're back.
Harris and Donald Trump.
When it ends in just a few minutes, join us for an analysis of tonight's key moments. Our team will break down how it could shake up the final sprint to Election Day. For now, though, let's go back to the debate live in Philadelphia.
Live from the National.
I'm gonna get canceled in this stream.
Sure can.
I'm gonna get canceled. That's very much in my opinion. Alright. I have opinions too. For people.
Continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration.
I say I asked Russia to stop the war.
From Vladimir Putin to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to
I
move
will
even further.
have a meeting with
You have said you
two
can solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before
leaders,
the break tonight.
Zelensky
How
and
exactly will you
Putin,
do that?
to
And I'm
stop
asking a
the
very simple
war
question tonight.
in
Do you want
Ukraine.
Ukraine to win this war.
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly.
I agree. I want to stop the war and save lives.
Yes, we need to save the lives.
Than the numbers that you're getting with your fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president. Okay,
That's my idea. Thank you, Donald Trump.
How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
They
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president
Mr.
that
President,
doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all
Bro,
of these
censoring
human lives
it.
from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support.
Stop
for Ukraine
censoring
in this
it.
moment,
Censoring
but
what?
also, as Commander-in-Chief,
Censoring him.
elected,
Stop
how do you
censoring
view
Donald
President
Trump.
Putin, and
You
what
need
is
to
the
get the war
difference
settled.
from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important
he
to
trying to say?
remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden.
You
You're
tell
running
me what
against
you're
me.
saying?
He's trying
I
to.
believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force
why-
to change
why did you
territorial
invade Iraq?
boundaries, to define
Evil
the most
dictator.
important international rules and norms, which is the importance of
I
sovereignty
know.
and territorial
You invaded
integrity.
Iraq
And I
because
met with President
Saddam is an
Zelensky,
evil
and I shared
dictator.
with
He
him
killed
American
millions.
intelligence about how he could defend himself.
Just ask.
Days
but
later,
you-
I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the
You're
air
saying
defense,
you
the
rather support
ammunition, the artillery,
Ukraine
the javelins,
than
the
stop the
Abrams
war.
tanks that
Oh
we have
my
provided,
God.
Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just
No,
about Ukraine.
Putin will not sit
Understand
in
why
Kyiv.
the European allies
I mean,
and
under
NATO
Trump,
allies
probably, but
are so thankful
I will not allow that to
and
happen.
that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how
Are there
quickly
Polish
you would give
Americans?
up
There is
for the
Polish
sake
American.
of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is, it has been about standing as America always should.
He said be
As a leader,
Vladimir
upholding
Putin also.
international
I want
rules
to be
and
Vladimir
norms.
Putin.
As a leader
Same.
who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is Commander in Chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them.
Did you say you support Ukraine over
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements she made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war.
You accidentally sent
there is
over.
not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this. And the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than that, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind. And we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less.
You don't care?
Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated
because he was a businessman before.
He refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said, going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be
jail them. Don't execute them. Jail them. And it's not about race. It's about the crimes they did. Jail them.
Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had. A horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad that she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time's up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always
New
disparaging
leadership.
the American people.
You said you
I
support
believe
Ukraine
in what
over
we can
peace.
do to strengthen
New
our
leadership?
small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She
please.
has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
She has
we do
a
have to
plan
move on
to
to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need to
President
respond because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're
I
gonna
just need to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
Well,
Trump, this
censor
is
her.
now your
Yeah.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be great. Or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
Not now, we're talking about the
I was a
president.
senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president,
You should
we will
let
do that for all
people go to the
understanding
hospital for
that
free.
The value
No
I
money.
bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
See?
That's just prologue in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a
You
lot
made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance.
She said health care should be a human right like Canada.
Insurance that have worked hard and made money.
This is why the other countries are beating us right now.
To be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an
All the
operation
countries are
that you
beating
need to
us?
be.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump,
Who's
with regard
younger
to the
voters?
environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean
18-year-olds.
water. Vice President Harris,
18,
you call
19,
climate change an
20-year-olds.
existential threat.
Am I
The
one of
question to you
those?
both tonight
No,
is what would you
you're not
do
18 yet.
to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having
He
nowhere
said
to go.
he
We
said
know
climate
that we can
can't
actually
change.
deal with this issue. The young
It's
people of
not
America care
climate
deeply
change.
about this
It's
issue.
change.
And I
It's
am
some
proud that
just
as vice
some.
president
It's
over the
just
last 4
what's
years,
wrong with the
we have
earth.
invested $1
We
trillion
should have
in a
the
clean
world
energy
scientists
economy.
come together.
While we can
Russian
also
scientists,
increase
Chinese
domestic
scientists,
gas production
North
to
Korean
historic
scientists,
levels. We
Iranian.
have created
I don't care
over
which
800,000
one.
new manufacturing
All
jobs.
comes
While
together
I have been
and
vice
solve this
president,
one problem.
We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it between him and his son. They get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
All right,
Corporate time.
little talk time. Yes, it's my idea to get all the world scientists together to fix the Earth. All right. And yes, it's not okay to kill anyone, no matter their race. Okay? That's not okay.
Whoa.
It's almost 2 hours already on my live stream. Oh, back to the immigrant thing. I always talked about leaving the good people who want to immigrate to this country into the United States. Good people that want jobs there, and the bad gangs that want to kill people out. All right. And also people, and yes, I might disagree with Trump with a little bit. And Donald Trump will say, "You're putting down a country down the tubes too," because I want funding to the UN. I want funding to all these peace groups. I also want ceasefire in Ukraine, or at least the war stopped. Okay. And Kamala Harris said, "Oh, let's just support Ukraine." I'm like, you rather support Ukraine over peace.
That's a crime.
Yeah. It's not a crime to support Ukraine over peace, but it's wrong anyways. My brother, you see the glow? My brother's messing with his phone now because my friend Tyson broke it.
Yeah, you did.
But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about... So I agree with Kamala Harris on some things. And I agree on Donald Trump on some things. So I guess I'm not fully Republican, and I'm not fully Democrat. I want you, I don't know, since you get out of chat. I really don't.
Just picture stuff and just think about
How am I left leaning or right leaning? I know you cannot chat right now.
You can, but you can't see it.
Now, Wow. How hard is it to see it like this?
God damn.
But we are here.
Now is real.
Let's break down what we know and then the big questions still outstanding.
News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
We're back with tonight's debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
And when it ends, please join us for analysis of tonight's key moments. Our team will break it down. As we enter the final sprint to Election Day, we'll go back to the debate and closing statements.
Live from the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together. That is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions.
Your little brother can't allow
and
that.
not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Do whatever.
Vice President
No, throw it away.
Harris,
Yeah,
thank
throw it away.
you. President Trump.
That's how I can keep it.
So she just started by saying she's going to do
Why
this,
not
she's going to do
why
that,
not
she's going to do
don't
all these wonderful
Leave
things.
like tiny
Why
glass or anything
hasn't she
parked
done it?
on the
She's
ground.
been there for 3.5 years. They've
I
had
can still
3.5
pick at it.
years
I can
to
still
fix
pick
the
at it.
border. They've had 3.5 years
If I feel
to
glass,
create
show you.
jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being
it's
laughed
because
at
she's
all
not the
over
president.
world, all over the world, they laugh. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East.
We're not
We
a
have
leader
wars
no more.
going on
We're the
with
follower of
Russia and Ukraine.
follower of
We're going to
NATO.
end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the
Not
world.
all, there's
All
more.
of us here at ABC News. Good night.
And that's all?
That's all. That's
And
all.
welcome back to NBC News coverage of the debate. Pick your adjective.
W's.
I would go with 5
W's.
p.m., but
Almost 2 hours. Yeah.
We want the whole entire news.
Yeah, we watched the whole entire thing. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe. Not. I really don't know. He's still alive. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe. And this is my longest stream ever. This took 2 hours to make, and this is my longest stream ever. And this will be my most viewed stream ever. Hold on. This is my most viewed stream ever. Is he? No, he's not even live. All right. Sorry. I was just checking my friend. I'm live. See. I'm live. This number thing on there for me is my whole live stream. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe. See you later. Bye. And hold on. Before I end this video, hold on. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe. And I support both sides and both arguments. We shouldn't kill people. We should have people. We're for the people, not for themselves. At this current, yeah, we're for the people, not for themselves. And we're for peace. We're for peace and not war. Even though there's a lot of war scenarios going in my head. Peace, not war. Like 2017. Like 2017. All right. Before that. Yeah. Actually, before that, the Israel-Hamas war is a huge tragedy. Why are countries supporting both sides? Why are they supporting sides anyways? They should just support peace. All right? They should support peace. Thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe. See you later. Bye.